Hey everyone, welcome to this video. So if you've ever attempted to build a website, you probably know already that creating content is one of the hardest parts of the whole process. And to be frank, failing to create enough content is one of the main reasons people fail. And one of the things that makes creating content difficult is the need to juggle between many apps and copy and paste your content here and there, and going to Google Docs and going to your SEO optimizer and going to WordPress, etc. This leads to a lot of time wasted that you could be spending on creating content instead of actually, playing with the tech. And that's why one of my main goals in the last year has been to streamline the content creation process and make it as smooth as possible so we can focus on what actually matters: creating content. And I'll be honest, the setup we're using right now, I'm pretty happy with it, and that's exactly what I'm going to be sharing with you in this video. It's a stack that allows you to collaborate with writers and give them feedback on the content so that can actually improve, and you can really have an editorial process that allows you to go back and forth. It's also a stack that makes internal linking very easy, and I'll show you exactly how we do this. It's also very simple to highlight the change history of a document, which is really handy when you pay writers to update content, which is something SEOs do more and more these days. It gives you SEO recommendations to add long-tail keywords to your content directly in your text editor without the need to go to a third-party app. It checks for uniqueness because we all know that some freelance writers like to actually just sell you duplicate content, so I wanted to make sure they don't do that. It checks for bad writing style, so if there's long sentences that need to be rewritten or like commas missing, that kind of stuff that a lot of writers tend to do, it also highlights that. And finally, you can take the whole thing and easily push it to WordPress in just one click. And after I've told you everything it can do, I'm sure a lot of you are doubting. I mean, if such a tool existed, we would probably know about it. And that's true. I mean, we're going to need to be a bit MacGyvery and use some duct tape here and there to assemble things together so that our perfect SEO editor comes to life, but you'll see it's totally possible. But before I share that stack with you, what I'd love you to do is share your thumb up to this video, because we spend more and more time creating content for YouTube, and it's always rewarding when we see you guys thumb it up, when we see you guys appreciate it. So if you enjoy this kind of tech stack share, make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment, click on the bell, do everything that you need to make this video do well on YouTube. So you're not going to be surprised to learn that we are using Google Docs as the base text editor here. The reason why is because the commenting system is absolutely the best in the industry, and I think if you're working on Microsoft Word, for example, as your writers, you're kind of missing out on the amazing collaborative features in Google Doc. It also has an add-on marketplace which allows you to add a lot of functionalities to it, and we are going to be using it to bring in the stuff that it's missing and build the perfect SEO text editor. One thing I enjoy as well is it plugs into most project management systems, so whether you use Trello or Asana like you, or Monday.com for example, you can attach your Google Docs to any task and it's going to seamlessly integrate, and you can access it from your task manager, which allows you to focus on getting stuff done and not just on a collection of documents. And if you remember in my introduction, I mentioned that I want a system that allows me to build internal links very easily. Well, Google Docs is really good if you understand how it works. And so the trick to build internal links with Google Docs is to highlight a word or a keyword that alludes to a topic where you have an article on your site, and then make it a link, click on that button, and then search like you would search on Google. So usually type the name of your site with the keyword related to the article, and Google Docs actually can Google within the link functionality, which allows you to quickly build an internal link without knowing the URL of the page you want to link to. It makes internal linking very easy, and you don't even need to add an extra plugin to your site, which I know a lot of people care about. So now that we have our base text editor in Google Docs, what we need to do is we need to bring in SEO recommendations, long-tail keywords, etc., because we all know it's quite important if you want to rank these days. And that's why we use SurferSEO's content editor. The reason why I use this one and not another one is because through the Chrome extension, you can actually bring all the recommendations of SurferSEO inside Google Doc as you're working on it. So you don't need to change the interface, and it's much easier for your writers to work in one place than copy and paste the text everywhere, have multiple versions, and create a huge mess. The downside of SurferSEO though is that you can't create the brief from Google Docs. You need to log into their app, create a document from there, and basically set all the settings for your document. So for example, which competitors they are going to be basing the analysis on, which keywords you want and don't want in your article, and also the number of words, but also questions that you might want your writers to answer. So you need to set all of that inside Surfer, and then you can transmit that into your Google Docs. So as an admin, it's not fully seamless, I agree, but for your writers, for your workforce, it definitely is. So now that we have a text editor, I think it's important to address style and uniqueness. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into that, but we actually have done some data analysis. And for example, we've established that the higher your lexicon count is, the more you correlate with higher rankings on Google. We've also established that the lower your readability score is, which means the easiest your content is to read, the higher you correlate with higher rankings on Google. And finally, we've also established that less grammar mistakes also correlates with higher rankings. So even if you don't care that much about that stuff, you probably should for the sake of your Google rankings. And my tech solution for this is using Grammarly Premium. By the way, I'll put all the links in the description if you want to check out all these tools, so you can find them in one and convenient location. But as a non-native speaker, I heavily rely on Grammarly for pretty much all the content you see from me. So if you're subscribed to our newsletters, for example, and you should be, because I share a lot of these tips before they get on YouTube on our newsletter on authorityhacker.com/subscribe. Well, I use Grammarly Premium to edit that newsletter, and trust me, it finds a lot of mistakes. And for me, the $144 they ask yearly is really worth it. And you could basically be sharing your account with your entire team, so it's not that crazy if you create a decent amount of content. And the reason I like them a lot is because they also have a Chrome extension that brings all their recommendations inside Google Docs. So once again, your writers don't have to change the interface to create content. And unlike its name suggests, Grammarly doesn't just fix your grammar issues. They actually fix your poorly worded sentences, for example, and rewrite them completely for you using AI. And one thing that not many people are aware of is that Grammarly Premium comes with a plagiarism checker. And that's really good when you are publishing online content that you intend to rank on Google, because it's happened to a lot of people to have their freelance writers essentially give them duplicate content, and they would just publish it on their site, not rank, and wonder why. There is one caveat though. This function is not in the Chrome extension, unfortunately, so to check for duplicate content, you need to take that content, take it into the interface of Grammarly, and then run the duplicate checker by clicking the plagiarism button. It will then give you a bunch of sources where it found similar content. Now, don't be alarmed if it finds like 1% similar content. Very often it's just a string of words that is the same between your article and another article that is often completely unrelated, but it can find chunks of text that have been stolen if your writers do that. One thing I really like with Grammarly as well is that you can actually set the tone you want. So if you want to be more casual, for example, when I do emails, I always set to casual and to the lowest reading level. So it's very simple and easy to read. And they will adapt the recommendations to that reading level that you have set up. And usually I would recommend you guys always set the lowest reading level because that correlates with higher rankings. And I know what you're thinking at this point. Well, we're working on Google Docs, that's all great, but writing Google Docs doesn't rank my website. And you would be right. Now, the good news is if you are creating blog posts that don't have a lot of images, copy and pasting from Google Docs to WordPress has actually been quite easy with the new Gutenberg editor. So if you haven't switched yet and you're doing blog posts without too much media, go ahead and switch to Gutenberg, and it's going to be solving all your issues here. But if, like me, you create very media-rich content that has a lot of images, etc., moving your content from Google Docs to WordPress has been a bit of a nightmare, because if you copy and paste your content from Google Docs to WordPress, it's going to take the URLs of the images and put them in your content rather than uploading the media in the media library like it should. And that means very often these URLs break, or like the sharing options really make things messy. And if you actually want to move the images yourself, you have to download the document as HTML, then you get a folder with all your images in a random order with a random name. You need to rename them, you need to re-upload them, and then put them in the right place in the article. It takes a long time, so it's either going to cost you time or money if you're paying someone to do this, and it sucks. So my solution to that is Wordable.io. It is a paid tool, and there was supposed to be a free solution through the Jetpack plugin, but I've tried it on multiple sites, and every time I have, it didn't work, it broke, and I had a ton of issues. So eventually I just went back to Wordable and it worked right away. The first thing you have to do to use it is install their plugin and connect it to your Wordable.io account that you've created previously so that they can upload Google Docs to your website. Then inside your Wordable.io account, you'd connect your Google Doc folder where your blog posts will be. And then once you have done that, the list of documents inside that folder is going to show up on the interface, so you can select it to upload as a draft. And you have a bunch of export options when you are transferring a Google Doc to your WordPress site. Things like basic cleanup to, clean up the HTML, things like opening links on a new tab, things like adding alt text for an image, for example, which is kind of handy, compressing your images if you're not using a plugin that does that, or applying nofollow to links, for example. So it's quite handy that it allows you to do that automatically. Then once you've picked your options, you can just click on the Export Now button, and within a few minutes, the post is going to appear as a draft on your website with all the media perfectly uploaded to your media library. I would recommend you check it out before you publish it just to make sure it didn't make any mistakes, but from my experience it doesn't. And then you can just press publish, and that's it. Your writers had a single interface to get feedback, to build internal links, to get SEO suggestions, to fix grammar and style, and to publish to WordPress. And that is, to me, really valuable if you are producing a decent amount of content. And this tag has saved us a ton of time and money. But I'm always trying to improve it. So I'm really curious, do you use any other tool for your content creation that I did not mention in this video? I would really love to hear that so we can improve our stack actually. So please drop me a comment below with the tools that you might be using that might beat this stack actually. I'm quite curious. And by the way, if you want to check all the tools that I have mentioned in this video, they're all in the description below, so check them out. Some of them are affiliate links and make us some commission. Some of them are not because they don't have an affiliate program, but you can find everything in one place. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and like it so that we make more videos, basically. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.